Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Happy Friday, kiddos. Thanks for tuning in to The Right Time with Bomani Jones. My name is Clinton Yates, filling in. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, and all guests on The Right Time appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can also hit me up, 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Talking a lot of basketball today. We've got things breaking left and right regarding the NBA draft. But, of course, there's Lonzo Ball. Got to talk about Lonzo Ball. You know why? Because when your boy is on the mic, I like to talk about the Ball family. But sometimes it's basketball, sometimes it's not. In this case, it is. Ramona Shelburne, whom we all know, NBA writer, she says that Lonzo Ball is still considering talking to teams that have lottery picks below the Lakers, which is interesting because, look, his dad has been screaming about how he's going to go to Los Angeles. There's been all sorts of reports out here, wild rumors, who Magic likes, who likes Lonzo, whether or not he's in shape, who he's been working out with. Now we got league sources telling ESPN that the Sixers and the Celtics are working on a trade. That was in a package of Sixers drafts to Boston, including the number 3 overall pick at Thursday's draft in exchange for number 1. There is a lot happening around the first 3 picks, potentially, of the NBA draft. Now, if you ask me, I think Lonzo was stupid to begin with not to be working out for other teams. But he's got a lot he's got to deal with. I mean, the LeVar situation obviously has thrown a monkey wrench into what his decision-making can be. But Lonzo's been branching out and, speaking for himself. Did that Foot Locker ad. I believe he's got something in the Players Tribune now. Who he goes to is going to be a very obviously important thing in terms of his life. But it'll be interesting to see how that affects the rest of the NBA. Because Lonzo in LA is a completely different story than Lonzo somewhere else. Like, totally. It's not that it's a non-story if he doesn't go to Los Angeles. But he becomes, I think, just another rookie. If he goes to the Lake Show, nah, man, bright lights are on starting at the beginning. But he's not the only guy in the draft. Markelle Fultz is in the draft, clearly. He had something to say about Lonzo that is kind of intriguing.
What do you think of the other top point guards in the draft, like Lonzo Ball and De'Aaron Fox, what they bring to the table compared to what you do?
I respect all of them. They all got different types of games. I believe I fill in every box on both ends of the floor. So, I think that's what the difference is.
What feedback did they give you after the workout?
Just a pretty good job. I worked hard. They saw that I worked hard. They saw that I had the mechanics to shoot the ball right and everything like that. So that's all that really mattered.
Is he throwing shade at Lonzo there? A little bit? Maybe. But Fultz is probably going to, I like Fultz. I like his game a little bit. Do I think he's head and shoulders above anybody else? Nah. Do I think anybody in this draft is really head and shoulders over anybody else? Nah. A lot of mock drafts have him going number 1. But it is a big toss-up. We were talking about this earlier on the program. The Celtics trading down, okay. Maybe that's Danny Ainge simply saying, I don't have the confidence in a number 1, whoever it may be. Maybe that's Danny Ainge saying, you know what, I need more anyway, might as well stockpile. Or maybe it's Danny Ainge just not wanting to pull the trigger on something so that he's forced to make a decision and actually tell Celtics fans what direction that franchise is going. Maybe it's that. I don't know. That's just me. Because it seems to me, if I'm a C's fan, I have no idea what's going on with the future of this franchise regarding the actual realistic ability to compete now and later in a league that has LeBron James. 1-888-SAY-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Clinton Yates here on The Right Time, filling in for Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. Matt in Boston, what's up?
Hey, how you doing? I just want to put in my 2 cents on this Danny Ainge thing. So this has been rumored for a long time that Jackson was Ainge's choice over Fultz. So this isn't really that surprising. It looks like what he's trying to do is really prepare for next year's draft when you've got Porter and the kid from Arizona coming out. I forgot what his name is. He's going to be one and done. And then you got potentially Philly's pick, which is really going to be the Lakers pick and could be high. And you got Brooklyn's pick. And in terms of what he has to sell to the fans, he doesn't sell anything to the fans. The fans here realize that we're like 28 out of 30 other teams, that there is no future now, or there is no present. There is only the future. So that's my take on that. I mean, it's just.
Hold on, let me ask you though, Matt. Let me ask you though. Hang with me. That is a stance, though. I mean, but he is. You're saying that he's basically, in your opinion, selling the forget about now. We're going for the future only.
Well, he's not selling it. You could tell that's what his plan is based on the actions he's taking. He's not going to come out and say that. It's a business. No one can come out and say that.
I get that, but what I'm saying is, are you happy with that? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, because I'm a realist, and there is no other course you can take.
Fair enough. Thanks for the phone call. I appreciate that. If C's fans are basically just saying, yeah, all right, we'll concede to LeBron for the next 3 years, okay. Fair enough. That doesn't answer your questions about what you got to do without Horford and Isaiah Thomas, though. That has to be worked out. Not really sure where you go with that. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Nick in Pennsylvania, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you doing? I just want to comment on the Celtics stuff. I'm not exactly sure what's wrong with going to the Eastern Conference Finals every year. I mean, I'm a Pittsburgh fan of everything, and I'm always happy when we just make the playoffs every year. I'm very fortunate that we've won a lot of championships and everything, but I don't know if anybody in the draft is going to make the Celtics good in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, you can't draft anybody in the next 2 or 3 years and compete with LeBron and the Cavs, so what does it matter if they trade away the pick?
Fair enough. It sounds to me like C's fans are basically just conceding to the fact that they're not going to be competitive, at least enough to win a title in the next 3 years. Okay. That's not what I was expecting, but that's what I'm hearing. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. That's really weird, though, to me. Because you get this far. You got Isaiah, you got Horford. Seems like it might be worth it to take a shot. Danny Ainge has a lot of questions to answer. And just saying, oh, well, it's going to be in the future, at what point are you going to cash in on these assets? I think if you're a Celtics fan, that's a reasonable question to ask yourself. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Josh in Houston, how you doing?
Good, sir. What's going on?
Chilling.
Hey, listen, I think Josh Jackson's the play. I think that's been the plan the whole time. I think by moving into this number one slot, they're getting exactly what they want, plus some assets, whether it be from Philly. If they end up with the number 3 slot, I think they could still steal Jackson and potentially pull Julius Randle. Cheap deal, $4 million a year. They're getting rid of Amir Johnson. Isaiah's on the book for $7 million. I think that they can still go for it right now with the team that they have by adding Jackson.
That was a good phone call, and that sounds like a plan to me. That's reasonable. But again, maybe Danny Ainge is a genius. Maybe he's going to pull off something that is unclear to us all and manage to put this all together and possibly beat a LeBron team. I'll allow for that. I'm not implying that this is totally out of his hands and he has no idea what he's doing. That's not at all what I think. I just think that he's got one too many decisions to make in a sport where the rosters are not that deep. You got 13 guys on a team. You can't have 9 questions about what's going to happen in the next 5 years. That's a really difficult thing to manage. Cut that bad boy down to 2 or 3 choices, and things are a little bit clearer. But right now, the C's are doing something that I'm not sure that I can necessarily see working now. And it's still a long bet off as to whether or not any of this works in the future. 1-888-ESPN, 1-888-729-3776. Bobby, how you doing? You're in the Beantown.
How you doing? So
I'm good.
What I'm hearing out of Massachusetts is that the Celtics are going to package this pick and get up and get Jimmy Butler.
Okay. Thanks. I still don't get what they're trying to do. None of this is going to make waves enough to beat LeBron, and you've got to find a way to satiate the fan base in the interim. I hope Danny Ainge gets it right, to be fair. I like Danny Ainge. This is a complicated scenario that I think for a lot of Celtics fans, you've got to go so many different ways that there's no real way to know what you're expecting out of your franchise for the next 5 years. Not something I ever expected out of an organization like the Boston Celtics. Coming up, Roger Goodell says Colin Kaepernick is not being blackballed by the NFL. Who would have thunk it? I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones on The Right Time on ESPN Radio.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Picture me rolling. Tupac Shakur. All Eyes on Me. This is my favorite song of his of all time. Great jam. You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio with Bomani Jones, but I'm Clinton Yates filling in on a Friday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on The Right Time appear via the Sharp End Zone Performance Line. Switching gears to the NFL here. Commissioner Roger Goodell said something about Colin Kaepernick today that was not exactly shocking, but was a little interesting to hear him say directly. He was at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum Thursday and on stage at an NFL Network event, Rams All Access. Andrea Kramer asked him about whether or not she thought Kaepernick was being blackballed from the league. And here's what Goodell said. All want to get better, referring to all teams. And if they see an opportunity to get better as a football team, they're going to do it. They're going to do whatever it takes to make their football team better. So those are football decisions. They're made all the time. I believe that if a football team feels that Colin Kaepernick or any other player is going to improve that team, they're going to do it. Look, I mean, come on. Like at this stage, I'm not necessarily so sure that we can expect anything of anyone from anywhere in the league to say anything other than that. We've been through a lot of the offseason. If you're going to get him on your team, it's going to have already happened. But at no point now is somebody in an official capacity, especially not somebody that's not an owner, going to come out and just say, nah, none of us want him and we all talked about it. That's just not realistic. The Giants owner came out and said, basically, nah, we didn't want to do it because our fans would revolt, telling you a little bit something about what they think about other guys that have been on that roster before. He said something. But right now, I think that this is basically a mystery solved. Blackballed, whisper campaign, whatever you want to call it. Even if every team individually made their own independent decision not to deal with what would be coming with Colin Kaepernick, it's all the same result. Guy's not ever going to play in the league anymore. Might sound crazy, but I don't see any other reason to believe anything else. You going to pick him up now? Maybe if somebody gets hurt, a starter of import. But even then, adding a guy quasi mid-season, a guy like that, I don't think any team's going to do that. Like I've said before, half of this is not even about whether or not these teams, whomever may be in power or in control, it's not about what they think about his politics. It's about the fact that many NFL squads are simply not ready from a PR standpoint to deal with this. Everybody's going to be asking him about his thoughts about everything in America all the time. And you're basically going to be getting official statements from one of your players that are going to outline a certain view on the world and on the country. Not every squad is ready for that. Some squads can barely handle random press conferences introducing new players without bungling it. I can think of a franchise down the street from where I live that could barely handle anything. You throw in an actual smart guy who actually discusses his thoughts on current events, that's a PR disaster for many squads. It just is. There's no way around that if you're used to basically only being a football operation and suddenly you've got him on your roster. So I get that. You just don't got to lie. Tell the truth. I'm supposed to believe from Roger Goodell that every single team in the league, for football reasons, didn't want Colin Kaepernick? Nah, nobody's buying that. Not a soul. But Shannon, at this point, I think it's pretty fair to say he ain't ever playing in the NFL again.
Ever? You don't think so? You don't think?
No. I mean, unless barring a relatively big injury where he is sort of required, I just don't see it happening. I don't think there's a squad that can pick him up and weather the storm without making themselves potentially look foolish. That's just me. I mean, it's cynical, absolutely, but I also think it's realistic. Now, you've got teams that have been, relatively sort of, I guess you can say progressive, if you will. The Seahawks come to mind, didn't work out there. The Dolphins, for example, they've got this new push where they're getting every single player on their team to register to vote. Their owner is part of the RISE organization. There are teams that theoretically might line up with what you think Kaepernick's belief system may be if that's necessary for you to understand. But I just don't know that there's a lot of teams that are ready to deal with that. And that's really unfortunate. Sidebar, I love this effort from the Dolphins, just to be clear. An NFL team getting people engaged from a civic standpoint, that hits hard in a lot of communities. And even if it's just the players, maybe that extends out into some registration drives. Maybe that extends out into communities and educating them about how to be engaged in their communities. That's cool. I'm here for that. Now that I think about it, the Dolphins actually would be a decent franchise in this situation. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones. You're listening to The Right Time on ESPN Radio. We're brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. But overall, I don't know why Goodell even needs to act like this is even an issue anymore. Everybody knows that Colin Kaepernick is not playing because he kneeled for the national anthem. And everybody out there seems to believe that the national anthem is such a revered song in the history of the nation that this man never deserved to play in the NFL again. If you don't know my feelings about the national anthem, I'll tell you this. Number one, it's a waste of time, in my personal opinion. And number two, the history of that song, you know when they first started playing that song? Is in the 1918 World Series. Cubs, Bo Sox. Babe Ruth was still on the team. That's when that tradition started. So if you want to defend that and like hang on to it as like the thing that has to happen, no matter what, to honor this country, why don't you think about what baseball was like back then? Oh, that's right. They didn't let black people play. Weird. How about that? The legacy of the song, at its core, at sporting events, is rooted in a racist situation. So there's that little nugget just to hold on to while you yell and scream about how Colin Kaepernick is not patriotic. Just know that. All that aside, though, it's going to be really tough for him to get back into the league because NFL teams just don't want to deal with anything more than they absolutely have to. And that's a shame because Colin Kaepernick would make a lot of NFL teams better. Coming up, Dave McMenamin. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones on The Right Time. We've been talking a lot about Upside.com, telling you it will save you or your company big on business travel and that you'll get a big gift card every trip you buy. Sounds too good to be true, right? Go to Upside.com and check it out. Super fast searches, by the by. For instance, in less than 2 minutes, you could have a few awesome choices on American Airlines flights to Chi-Town at the end of the month. That could work for you and save you on a bunch of big-name hotels. Your options could get you a gift card and save your company nearly $300. Taking a business trip, you'd be crazy not to use Upside. Spend less of your company's money and get more rewards for yourself. Upside's the real deal, fam. You may wind up with a gift card worth $268. Trust me. Go to Upside.com today. Plus, when you use the promo code Bomani, you're guaranteed to get at least a $100 Amazon gift card for your first trip. That's code Bomani to get a $100 gift card free. Save big on travel and get a big gift card every trip. See what your next trip's worth today. Upside.com. That's Upside.com. Minimum purchase required. See site for complete details.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Welcome to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. Clinton Yates here with you, filling in on a Friday. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, comparing rates to help you save. Now, that's Progressive. Call or click today and find out how much Progressive could save you. On the Shell Pennzoil Performance line right now, we've got Dave McMenamin. How are you, Dave?
I'm great, and how are you?
I'm pretty good. We've been talking a lot about rivalries, super teams, draft stuff. I'm going to ask you off top, do you think that Cavs-Dubs is as good a rivalry as the NBA has seen since Lakers-Celtics?
Wow. I mean, since Lakers-Celtics, like Kobe KG, or since the Lakers-Celtics going all the way back, you know,
all the way back.
And Bird and West and Russell. I mean, listen, it's the best we got going in the league right now, absolutely. But, you know, were there some great rivalries in between? Wasn't Pistons-Bulls something that was must-watch TV? Wasn't, Pistons-Lakers, Sixers-Celtics, Sixers-Lakers of the early 80s? I mean, there's been so many great ones. This one, we're early into it, and because there's never been in the history of the NBA, a time where the same two teams met 3 consecutive years in the finals, it automatically elevates it to that level. But, right now we got one classic finals between the 3, 2 intriguing finals around it. I'll give it another year or 2 before I put it at that level.
Fair enough. I don't mind that. I am liking it right now, though, I got to say. This back and forth between Draymond and LeBron is very entertaining in my book. Do you feel the same way? Because some people think it's petty.
But petty's good. We like petty. Petty gets you to pay attention to somebody's Facebook feed when normally you would just scroll right through. If somebody's being petty, you're like, oh, I'm going to like this. I might even find a little heart emoji on this one. It creates intrigue in the NBA, and the league is, you look at the revenue coming in, you look at the TV ratings, you look at all the other measurables, the attendance, it's in a better place than it's ever has been before. And a lot of that is guys taking their personal brand serious and putting the time and the thought into having people pay attention to them. And this is, that's the nth degree, because certainly LeBron is probably the poster child for players who is very self-aware and understands, the reverberations of every move that he does out in the social media sphere. And someone who's basically his protege in that department in Draymond Green, someone who is a LeBron James employee. He works for Uninterrupted. That's where his podcast is produced. That's LeBron James's multimedia platform. So there is a part of me is like, okay, this could be just a little bit for show, free promotion for what they're doing. But at the same time, everybody knows that wrestling is fake, and no one seems to care. They still tune in.
Good point. You're listening to The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates filling in here. Dave McMenamin joins us on the line. He's the NBA reporter for ESPN based out of Cleveland. That being said, regarding the business of show, LeBron James potentially leaving Cleveland, is this something that people around there are stealing themselves for, are angry about? Where is the state of the Clevelander fan when it comes to the future of LeBron James?
I don't think there's any sense of anger yet, because it is all speculation and a potential move down the line. I've spoken about it really for over a year now. As soon as LeBron James went on the record to Bleacher Report last year and kind of said that, by the time my career is done, I'd really like to play with Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. There's a shot to do that. And you started doing the math then, and it was like, that's probably not going to happen in Cleveland based on the salary structures of where those guys are at that point. And now you look now, LeBron is in really the most fluid situation out of all those 4 players as well. Combine that with what's going on off the court. In terms of his business interests, mentioning Uninterrupted, that's housed out of the Warner Brothers studios out in Burbank, California. So, there are some breadcrumbs to follow out to Los Angeles. But I haven't sensed anything out of the fan base in terms of anger. I think there's questioning, but the questioning is more so in the immediate future is what the Cavs can do this offseason to compete with the Warriors versus what can we do 2 years from now. Because here's the truth of the matter. The Warriors are so good that unless LeBron is at his absolute peak, the Cavs have no business even being in a series with them, winning a game. And, we got LeBron's absolute peak in the finals this past year. It didn't matter. So the longer we go down the line, the more or the little bit of atrophy would finally show in LeBron's game. You're only going to lose at the end anyway. So I think it's more about the immediate future and what the Cavs can do to more so than what LeBron will do down the line.
We're talking with Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter. Well, it sounds like we can pretty much put everything in the suitcase and wrap it up for the next 5 years in the NBA. I mean, if LeBron and his team aren't competing and the Cavs don't know what they're going to do next, does that bode well? And I guess to your answer, I'm going to ask you the question you just stated. What are the Cavs going to do?
Well, I've spoken to people in that locker room, people in the front office. There is a sense that why don't we keep this thing together? We, even though lost 4-1 in the finals, there was a game where we had a 6-point lead with 3 minutes to go. Another game on the road in a Game 5 super hostile environment. We're only down 3 in the fourth quarter. I believe the Cavs, on some level, have to think about keeping it together because they don't really have any other options. You can dangle Kevin Love on the trade market, and they will certainly field calls on Kevin Love, but they've done that really since they acquired him in the summer of 2014. Unless, somehow the Knicks were willing to part with Carmelo Anthony plus number 8 pick, perhaps, and you could get a, athletic wing like a Malik Monk, perhaps. It's hard to me to see any scenario out there that's realistic that would make the Cavs better by parting with Kevin Love. If they got Paul George, I think that would make them better. But I'm not sure how realistic that scenario is. So more likely what you're going to see out of this Cavs team is you spend money to retain Kyle Korver. You try to convince some veterans to take a pay cut to come out here to chase a ring. Guys that they'd be interested in are two-way players like Davos Apolosha, P.J. Tucker, Vince Carter. That's the route they have here. And then really working internally to make sure their defensive attention and defensive system is better in tune come playoff time, because this year was such a disjointed regular season and they really got a defensive identity, and that seemed to haunt them in the biggest moments of Game 5 of the finals where guys were cutting back door and getting wide open looks.
Last thing I'll ask you is on the news of the day. What do you think about the Celtics possibly trading down to acquire more picks for the future and Danny Ainge seemingly just kind of stalling?
Yeah, Clinton, it's an interesting day for me because I fly to Boston on Sunday. I'm going to be covering the Celtics draft for ESPN.
Nice.
So,
okay.
I'm trying to get a sense of what's going on right here. Now, you can look at the redundancy of already having a pretty strong backcourt in Isaiah Thomas and Avery Bradley, and then if the guy there is Fultz, who's also not necessarily a big guard. He's about 6'3.5" or whatever. So then, perhaps he's not the greatest fit, and if other teams out there lust for him, and you can get more assets because, again, you don't see your window being next year, then it makes sense to me. Josh Jackson is one of these hybrid, prototypical, 2, 3, 4 guys that the league seems to be turning towards. And if you can get him, plus picks that'll help you in the future, plus maybe bring in Gordon Hayward in free agency, I can't fault the Celtics for going that direction, but it is a surprise to me because when I was in Boston during the conference finals, I had several team sources within Celtics tell me that they were enamored by Fultz, and that was the guy that they wanted. Right. That makes me wonder if this is a bit of a smokescreen as well.
He's Dave McMenamin. You can follow him on Twitter at MC10, where his panel photo is the coolest Cavaliers jersey of all time. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Lynn.
Dave has written a book about LeBron James and the Cavs coming back. Never let anybody forget that the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead. But it should be interesting what the Celtics do and what LeBron does, for that matter. I've said it before. I'll say it again. LeBron James leaving Cleveland is the best thing that could happen for the NBA, particularly if we went to Los Angeles. It's time for LeBron to go. Simple as that. Coming up, it's time to stop judging super teams if you hadn't heard. I'm Clinton Yates, filling in for Bomani Jones on The Right Time on ESPN Radio.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones. We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, the NBA Finals may be over, but we still have drama. Got drama, Clinton. I know I didn't get you ready for that.
Drama! I got another one. Hold on.
Drama!
That's a longer one.
You're going to have that in my head all weekend.
It's the greatest.
All right. Well, we have Ultimate Petty Wop here with Carmelo. LeBron. And the drama thing has got me all thrown off. With LeBron and Draymond drama. It might not be real, but it's at least entertaining. And if you haven't heard, here is Clinton Yates earlier today on The Right Time discussing the LeBron and Draymond drama.
Drama! That's what we're dealing with in the NBA these days. Not the fact that two of the greatest teams we'll ever see squared off in the finals. Not the fact that the Warriors did not blow a 3-1 lead. And not the fact that Kevin Durant finally got his championship. We're talking about super teams. As a fan of the NBA and a lifelong sports fan, I must admit this is a little embarrassing. I mean, what are we doing? You got a good team. You put them together one way or the other. Last time I checked, that was what the whole point of sports is. I'm never going to understand these people who have all these judgments about whether or not guys stay in one place, find other people through whatever means they can, because apparently you can't do it one way or the other now, or these basketball hipsters are going to get on you. I just don't understand what the hate is here. LeBron James is a great player. He likes to get guys around him who can win. This is basic math. Draymond Green's out here complaining as if somehow somebody did something wrong or somebody hurt his feelings. Building it through the draft isn't any better than building it through free agency, in my opinion. If you think you're some kind of purist and that somehow makes sense to you, I don't think you like basketball that much, in fact, fam. Because what we saw in the finals, even if it wasn't the most competitive thing from a numbers standpoint, think about the players on that court. Think about who you saw. Think about what you got to watch. There have been some dog NBA finals. This wasn't one of them. Last year wasn't one of them. And the year before that wasn't one of them either. Let's do ourselves a favor here, guys and gals and everybody else. Let's drop the super team nonsense. And by that, I mean the judgment of the concept. Who doesn't want to be on a super team? I do. If I could just pick all the people I wanted to be around me who were the best at everything at all times, do you think I wouldn't take that chance? If you didn't take that chance, you'd be a fool.
I need these two teams. I need Draymond and LeBron to take it up another notch. I know LeBron goes dark during the playoffs with his social media, but I need him to get rid of that next year. I need them to be tweeting at each other and Instagram posting all of this during the finals next year. I need that. We need these two teams to start not liking each other. Not saying that they got to fight or any of this stuff, but I want some of that animosity. You know, I don't like any of I want the gamesmanship. Clinton, that's what I want.
You want him to open up the chopper, so to speak, from a social media standpoint.
Absolutely. Like these they have teams, right? LeBron, I'm sure LeBron has a social media team. Put his team on it. Start the Photoshops now. Let's make it a campaign.
That's pretty funny. But what Dave McMenamin brought up about this all potentially being like WWE-style kayfabe in terms of just trying to gin up interest in their shared business operation, that was a little funny to me. And I'm feeling a little bit played now, perhaps. I'm not really sure. Although I like that. I like a good manipulative move every once in a while.
It may or may not be like the Montreal job with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, but that's another conversation for another day. So we posed this question and had a poll on the ESPN Radio Twitter account. Is Cavs-Warriors the best NBA rivalry since Celtics-Lakers of the 80s? And 51%, it was close, 51% of the audience said yes, it is the best rivalry in the NBA since Celtics-Lakers of the 80s.
Yeah, that's very close. But the more I think about it, I'd say there's a reasonable recency bias there, too. Like, I agree that it is, but the recency bias there is heavy. But by the numbers, it's hard to argue with. You know, we talked about that going into the series. Only time an NBA team has ever faced off 3 times in a row in the finals. More All-Stars than ever on both sides of the ball. I mean, I guess whether or not it's the best since Lakers versus Celtics, to me, that's not even relevant not relevant, but what I'm saying is that for me, that's obvious. What's more relevant to me is that it might be the best rivalry in pro sports that I can think of right now. You know, it's not a lot of teams that are doing this.
And it's fun, and I think the purpose too that we included with the Twitter poll was, you know, that these two teams met in the finals. Because the rivalries that people have brought up, Bulls, Pistons, Knicks, Pacers, Knicks, Heat, Knicks, Bulls, Knicks in the media, those are all within the same conference. But to have these two teams, like you said, meet in the finals 3 straight years, that's what makes it different.
Absolutely.
All right, and last and certainly not least, today is National Mascot Day. Clinton, your favorite mascot?
My favorite mascot, I believe, is the Cal State Irvine, I'm guessing. Anteaters? Is that right? Google it quickly. I don't know. It's pretty cool. I like the Cal State Anteater. I'm also wearing a hat of the Sugarland Skeeters, a minor league baseball team outside of Houston. Not a big mascot guy. But I want to thank everybody for contributing this week. I'm not back Monday, but coming up, it's Jalen and Jacoby. I'm filling in for Bomani Jones. I'm Clinton Yates. This is ESPN Radio. Happy weekend, kiddos.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.